I found a notebook in the nightstand. The first line said, "If you're reading this, then you're probably hearing it too." I just checked into a cheap roadside motel outside Amarillo. Nothing fancy. Outdoor doors, buzzing light, lobby that smelled like Windex. I wasn't expecting anything weird, but that room felt wrong before I even sat down. My name's Josh. I was on a solo road trip, taking a week off between jobs and figuring I'd head west with no real destination. I've stayed in plenty of cheap motels, and none of them ever rattled me. But this one, something about it hit me sideways the moment I walked in. Room 9 was 3 doors down from the office, facing a weedy strip of parking lot. I remember the layout clearly: queen bed on the left, TV on a dresser across from it, narrow bathroom in back. It wasn't dirty exactly, just used. Everything had that low buzz feeling, like the walls were thin and the lights never shut all the way off. I set my bag down and went to plug in my charger, and that's when I saw it. A little black notebook inside the nightstand drawer. It wasn't hidden, just sitting on top of the Gideon Bible. No cover, spiral spine, maybe 20 pages written in pencil. The first line said, "If you're reading this, then you're probably hearing it too." I stopped and listened, but the room was silent. I flipped to the next page. The handwriting was messy, like someone wrote it fast, but the descriptions were exact. The broken corner of the TV, the drip in the bathroom sink, the half-used roll of toilet paper with the brand logo torn off. At first I thought it was some weird guest art project or something, but then I kept reading. There was a part where the writer said, "Try turning on the heater, it sounds like breathing." I flipped the dial on the wall unit and waited. Sure enough, the fan kicked on, and it didn't whir like normal. It made this slow inhale-exhale sound, just like they'd written. I turned it off, and that's when I started to feel uneasy, like whoever wrote this hadn't just stayed in the room. They were still in it somehow. The next page said, "Don't look through the peephole after midnight." I checked the clock. 10:47 p.m. Another line read, "They don't knock. They just wait." And sure enough, about 20 minutes later, I thought I heard someone outside. Not footsteps exactly, just the change in pressure, like someone had stepped too close to the door. I turned out the lights and looked through the peephole anyway. No one there, just a view of the lot. I watched for maybe 30 seconds, but nothing moved. I went back to the notebook and skimmed a few more pages. It was getting less coherent now. Timestamps, fragmented notes. 3:12 a.m. Still outside. 3:44, I locked the bathroom door. 4:06, heard someone say my name. Sounded like me. By this point, I was sure it was fake. Someone with too much time trying to creep people out. I tossed the notebook back in the drawer and got ready for bed. I must have nodded off for maybe an hour. When I came to, the room was quiet, except for a faint trickling sound. I thought maybe the sink was dripping again, but when I stepped into the bathroom, the faucet was fully on. Not just leaking, running. I turned it off, checked the lock, stood there for a second just listening. And when I came back into the room, the drawer was open again. The notebook was sitting in the middle of the bed, open to a new page. It said, "Don't answer him." That's when I noticed my phone screen was lit up. Active call, no number listed, just the timer running. 7 seconds. 8. 9. I hadn't touched it. I hung up and powered the phone off. Didn't even think. Just held the power button and shut everything down. I couldn't sleep. Every time I turned over, I thought I heard something in the bathroom. The sink would drip for a while, then stop. The heater would click even though it was off. At one point, I swear the shadows shifted on the ceiling, but that could have just been headlights from the lot. I finally dozed off with the lamp on and my shoes still on my feet. When I woke up, the drawer was open. I know I didn't leave it that way. I hadn't touched it since I put the notebook back, but now it was pulled halfway out, and the notebook was sitting on top, open to a page I hadn't read yet. It said, "He's in your reflection." I stood there for a second, holding the drawer open, heart pounding. Then I grabbed my bag and turned to leave. As I passed the mirror above the dresser, I refused to look straight at it, but in the corner of my eye, I thought I saw something move. Not me. Someone standing next to me. I didn't check. I didn't stop. I just got the hell out. I slammed the drawer shut, dropped the key at the front desk, and left without saying a word. The clerk didn't ask how my stay was, just stared at the screen and nodded. Later that night, from my next hotel room 2 towns over, I tried to call the front desk of the Desert Haven Motel in Amarillo. Just out of curiosity, maybe ask if someone left a notebook behind. But the number on the website didn't work. It rang once, then cut off. I tried again. Same thing. I looked up the place on Google Street View. The sign matched, but room 9's door was boarded up in the photo. Not taped off. Actually boarded up, like no one had stayed there in a long time. But I did, and I remember every detail. They gave us room 13, but the motel's floor plan stopped at room 12. Jen and I were halfway through a long road trip from Texas to Colorado for her cousin's wedding. We'd been driving for over 12 hours, and this was the only vacancy we could find for miles. I was fried from the road, and her back was killing her. At check-in, I noticed the little map on the back of the motel brochure showed all the rooms, 1 through 6 on one side, 7 through 12 on the other. That was it. No room 13. But the guy at the front desk, mid-40s, weirdly pale, circled a blank spot between rooms 6 and 7 and said, "You'll be in 13. He didn't smile, didn't explain. Just slid the key across the counter and looked past me like he was already done talking. Jen didn't catch the weirdness, but I did. I snapped a picture of the map before we left the lobby. Something didn't feel right. The door was between 2 vending machines, tucked in a weird alcove. It didn't even have a number on it, just a peephole, and the knob was so cold it made me flinch. When we got inside, the AC was already running. The room looked clean. 2 beds, old TV, laminate floor, but the air was cold and dry like it hadn't been touched in a while. Jen didn't say much, just dumped her duffel on the closer bed and stretched out. There was no deadbolt, just a little push-button lock on the knob, and the peephole looked warped, like someone had hit it from the inside. The curtains were closed tight, and the rods were bent. I tried opening them to let some light in, but one of the panels was jammed. While Jen rested, I went to the vending machine outside for a water. From there, I glanced back at our room. It hit me then. The exterior of that door didn't match any of the other guest rooms. The trim and frame looked like the ones used for supply closets or maintenance rooms. Nothing about it looked like a room that was meant to be rented out. Back inside, I sat at the little table and looked again at the motel brochure. It wasn't just that room 13 was missing from the diagram. It was physically impossible. There was no space between rooms 6 and 7 for another room to fit. The vending alcove wasn't even shown on the map. I looked at the wall beside the door. Thick concrete, painted beige like the rest of the motel. No seams or signs of construction. I couldn't make sense of it. When I brought it up to Jen, she just said, "Maybe it's old. Who cares?" and rolled over. She didn't know the weirdest part yet. From the outside, the door didn't look like a guest room entrance. It looked like a back closet no one was supposed to use. I tried to brush it off. I figured maybe it was a storage room that got converted. Still, when I checked my phone for nearby restaurants, I noticed I had no signal. Jen's had full bars. I went outside. Signal returned. Back in room 13, nothing. Then I heard something. A soft click, like the bathroom door closing. I stood up and crossed the room quietly. Jen was still in bed, facing away from me. I opened the bathroom door slowly. Light off. Empty. Nothing in the mirror. I checked behind the shower curtain just in case. Still nothing. I left the light on when I closed the door again. An hour later, we left for dinner. I put the "Do Not Disturb" sign on the motel room door and triple-checked the lock. The sun had already started to set, and the shadows in that corner of the lot were getting long. I told Jen I wanted to ask the front desk about the room. She said I was being paranoid, but she didn't sound as dismissive as before. When I asked the guy at the desk if room 13 used to be storage, he just stared at me. Then he said, "That's one of the contractor rooms. They're not always on the map." No further explanation. No offer to move us. He turned away before I could ask anything else. We came back from dinner just after 9. The room looked untouched. Lights off, nothing moved. But when I went to take off my shoes, I stepped on something. A corner of one of the motel brochures. It was folded and tucked under the bed, identical to the one I had in my wallet, except this one had something circled in red. Room 13, with a question mark written next to it. I asked Jen if she dropped it. She said, "No, I didn't even take one." Then she asked, "Wait, is that yours?" I pulled mine out of my wallet, held it up and said, "Nope." She looked uneasy now. She got up and rechecked the lock on the door. Then she said, "Maybe we should leave in the morning. Early." That night I shoved a chair under the doorknob, kept my shoes on, and slid my pocket knife under the pillow. Jen lay stiff under the blanket, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. Around 11, she finally fell asleep. I stayed up longer, listening. The building creaked a little, and the vending machine made its normal hum. But nothing weird. At some point, I must have dozed off because I woke up to a thump. I sat up fast. Jen was still asleep. But the bathroom door was cracked just a sliver. The light was on again. I opened the door to check outside. That's when I saw the "Do Not Disturb" sign was gone from the motel door handle. Then I turned toward the bathroom. Same position I left it in earlier. Just barely open. Light spilling out into the dark. I knocked once, quietly. Nothing. I knocked again, then pushed it open. Empty. But in the mirror, someone had written something in the steam. Except there hadn't been a shower. And the steam was inside the glass, not on the surface. Just 2 words. Someone else. We packed up and left at 5 a.m., just before sunrise. Jen was quiet in the car. She kept glancing back at the room as we pulled out of the lot. Later that day, we looked up the motel online. No mention of room 13. No mention of any contractor rooms either. But on a Reddit thread from 2 years ago, someone had posted a story about that same motel. They didn't go into detail. They just said, "Avoid the back corner room between the vending machines. It doesn't lock right." That night, Jen pulled a muscle relaxer from her travel bag, and something else fell out. A key card, same brand as the motel, blank white front, handwritten in faded ink, 13. We never used key cards. Our door had a standard turn lock. I held it in my hand and looked at her. She said, "That's not mine." I checked my wallet. My room key was still in it. That was a different one. When I went back through my phone photos, I noticed something I hadn't before. In the picture I took of the motel map, there was a small black rectangle between rooms 6 and 7. At the time, I thought it was just smudged ink. But zoomed in, you could see it wasn't part of the print. It had been drawn on, sloppily, and just beneath it, in tiny letters, "Keep closed." At 3:33 a.m., I opened my motel door, and someone was standing across the parking lot, perfectly still, just watching me. I've stayed in a lot of motels for work. Most blur together. But the Desert Hollow Lodge in New Mexico, I still don't understand what happened that night. No staff, no guests, no cell service. Every clock frozen at 3:33. And later, someone standing right where my peephole was pointed. My name's Eric. I'm a systems consultant for a logistics firm. And back in April, I had a client out in El Paso. I drove in from Phoenix late, and the company booked me one night at a cheap roadside motel halfway through. It was supposed to break up the drive. Clean enough place. Single-story outdoor access rooms, dusty parking lot. I got in around 11, did a little work on the laptop, and passed out by midnight. I woke up with this tight feeling in my chest, one of those cold start wake-ups where you know something's wrong, but you don't know what it is. I rolled over to check the time. The old digital clock by the bed said 3:33 a.m. I figured it was early, and I could sleep another few hours. But something about the silence hit me. Not just quiet. Dead. No humming AC, no cars passing. It felt off. I got up and looked outside. The parking lot was completely empty. My rental car was the only vehicle there. I remember frowning at that. There had been at least 3 other cars when I checked in. A white SUV, a truck with ladders. I walked to the window and looked both ways down the motel strip. Every room had its curtains drawn, no lights on. It felt like I'd slept through checkout and the whole place had cleared out without me. But that didn't make sense. I still had hours left before checkout. I pulled out my phone to double-check the time, and it also said 3:33 a.m. Weird coincidence. I opened my laptop. Same thing. 3:33 a.m. Not moving. I refreshed the browser. It stalled and gave me a no internet message. That's when I realized the Wi-Fi was down too. The network didn't even show up. I tried the room phone. Deadline. At that point, I was getting anxious. I stepped into my shoes, threw on a hoodie, and went to the front office. The door was unlocked, but no one was inside. Desk unmanned, no computer, no schedule, not even the little bell most places have. Just a black coffee pot, still full. The front clock was also stuck. Same time, 3:33. I stood there for maybe a full minute, waiting for someone to come out from the back. No one did. I called out, "Hello?" Nothing. I walked around the side and peeked through the open door into the back office. Empty chair, light on. No one there. I even knocked on the staff bathroom door. Silence. I walked back to my room, half expecting other guests to be poking their heads out, but the whole motel was still sealed shut. Every room dark, curtains tight, no movement anywhere. I tried calling the front desk from my cell, then 411, then the motel's listed number on Google. Each one gave me a busy signal or call failed. At one point, I actually wondered if there had been a power outage, but the lights were on in the hallway. I even unplugged and replugged the room clock. It blinked for a second, and went straight back to 333. I don't know how to explain it, but I felt stuck, like I was the only person in the whole place. I finally decided to grab my stuff and just go. I didn't care about the room charge. I just wanted to be around people. But when I opened the door to step out, I hesitated. Someone was standing across the lot, just far enough away that I couldn't see details, but close enough to know they were facing me. Not moving, just watching. I shut the door quietly and locked it. Then I walked over to the peephole to look again. The guy was still there. Dead center of the frame, not approaching, not leaving, just there. I stood there holding my breath, hoping it was just some random guest. But my rental car was still the only one in the lot. I had no idea how he got there. I turned off the room light and just watched. A few minutes went by. He didn't move an inch. No shift in posture, no sign of pacing, like he was waiting for something. I finally grabbed my phone and started recording video through the peephole, thinking I'd show it to someone later. But when I played the clip back, there was no one there, just the empty parking lot. I thought maybe the peephole was distorting my vision, or maybe there was glare from the exterior lights. So I looked again. This time, no one was outside. Just the lot, empty and still. But when I turned away, something shifted. I caught it in the TV screen reflection. Movement behind the curtain. I froze for a second, then slowly pulled the curtain aside. Nothing, just the glass. But I swear, I'd seen someone pass behind me. I left. Didn't even zip my bag, just grabbed everything and walked straight out. The man wasn't in the lot. I didn't care. I jumped in the car and pulled out onto the highway. The moment I hit the main road, my phone buzzed back to life. 4:21 a.m. Notifications pouring in, emails, pings, everything. Like service had been blocked until I left. I called the motel the next day to ask if they had surveillance footage or if something happened overnight. A woman answered, said they hadn't had any outages or issues, claimed someone was working the front desk all night. I asked about the room next to mine. She said there were 2 guests booked in that block, but they never checked in. Their cars never showed. I left a review warning people about the night I had. But when I checked a week later, it was gone. Not flagged, not removed, just vanished. If you ever pull off I-10 and see a flickering red sign for the Desert Hollow Lodge, just keep driving. Doesn't matter how tired you are. Doesn't matter how empty the road is. Trust me, checkout time doesn't always come.